Let's get to our best bets for Game 5, Knicks versus Pacers. Joe, we will start with you.
Yeah, so I'm going to still be on this Brunson play, and I can talk about it at a little bit more length. So you can grab, there's a 30 plus in the market at about minus 120. So I definitely like that. I like the round numbers. I like the milestones a lot of times with these scoring numbers. I feel like players do not, in this instance, maybe he's not really aiming for it because it is obviously an elimination game, but I do think there's like a subtle mental, suggestion there that you want to get to these thresholds. But like I said, he's hit this in 3 of 4 games against the Indiana Pacers. The usage has been honestly like kind of off the chart. Last game, though, was actually one of the lowest he had. It was only at 30. And in the fourth quarter, he was a little bit more passive. One of the things that he's still successfully been able to do is not only get to the free throw line, but convert on those opportunities. So we're getting a 12 for 14, 5 for 5, 10 for 10, 11 for 12 from Brunson so far this series. So I think that Brunson's just been excellent for New York. I think the Cat probably is fine, but I also think that we're going to need both Brunson and Cat to have max effort games. And Brunson's a guy that, with some of these rotations, Indiana still likes to run a traditional rotation. Given the fact that they're up 3-1 in the series, I would expect them to kind of stick with what they've been doing. I think that's going to give Brunson some more opportunities in the non-Nesmith minutes. He's absolutely cooking Ben Shepherd, Andrew Nemhard. If he gets Tyrese Haliburton switched on to him, he's destroying those matchups. And Nesmith, he's had like the ankle issue. I don't think they're going to push him to, like a 40, 44, minute type of role here. And whereas Brunson, given the stakes for New York, I think will. So I think that he's going to see a little bit of an uptick in his minutes, a little bit of an uptick in his usage. And I also think that he's just going to have some slightly softer matchups with Nesmith off the floor, who's, physicality, I think, has been a little bit tougher for Brunson to deal with relative to the rest of this Indiana Pacers team. So I'm going to grab 30 plus points for Jalen Brunson in this, winner stay home game. Go to Cancun.
Well, yeah, winner go to Cancun.
Winner go to Cancun.
3 out of the 4 games in this series, we've seen him go over that total, and I love that look. In fact, I'm probably going to end up tailing you on this. You have the team that is facing elimination, their star player at a reasonable number. They have to leave it all out on the line. Now, by the time you're listening to this might sound like this might reflect poorly on me, but that's the reason why I like Anthony Edwards over 27.5 points in Game 5 of under Timberwolves. Yeah, hopefully that sounds good when you guys are listening to that, not the live audience that is in front of us. I see Mock Rivers, by the way, says that my dim lighting makes me look ominous and that I am up to no good. I am in my studio here in the iHeartRadio Castle in Orlando, Florida. So the lighting is not quite as sunny as it is at the household. Kyle, what are we looking at?
Yeah, I got 2 player props. Already touched on Karl-Anthony Towns over 34.5 PRA a little bit, and then also Obi Toppin over 6.5 points. So for the Cat play, I already touched on that a little bit, but I'll add a little bit of the numbers behind it and why my model likes it. First of all, I think there is some, a little bit of value to some of these stars for the Knicks, just because obviously I know they've played well, but we've seen guys like Delon Wright, Precious Achiuwa, Landry Shamet get pretty substantial minutes for, this back end rotation, especially for a Tom Thibodeau coach team. 11 minutes for Shamet last game, 9 minutes for Delon Wright. Those minutes don't necessarily impact Karl-Anthony Towns too much, but I think just the process behind understanding that in this elimination game, we should be seeing these studs play, massive playoff elimination game type minutes. I do think we'll see that here in this game. So I have Cat projected for 37 minutes in that time, 24.8 points, 13.3 rebounds, and 2 assists as well. So all these numbers look pretty good for Karl-Anthony Towns and what I'm expecting to be increased minutes. So I have him projected closer to 40 PRA in this one. So that's kind of the numbers and the math behind me liking Karl-Anthony Towns in this one. Obviously, you have the angles as well, where I think they're going to need him to really step up in this game. He's been dominant on the glass as well, so I think he'll have plenty of more rebound chances here in this game. So all that stuff has me on the over here for Karl-Anthony Towns. And then for Obi Toppin, Joe mentioned with Rick Carlisle making some in-series and in-game adjustments and moves. I think Obi Toppin's a guy who could benefit from that. He's been playing really well. He's been one of their best plus-minus players for the Pacers so far this series, which is quite impressive. He is doing it on fairly limited minutes as well. I project him for 18 minutes here in that time, having for right around 10 points in this one. So that is obviously expecting a lot of efficiency for Obi Toppin, but he's been a guy when he's on the floor, not afraid to shoot, not afraid to find a spot behind the 3-point line and post up for three. So Obi Toppin grades out pretty well despite not really having a lot of success so far this series. He has 8 points in 2 of the 4 games so far this series, but been held to 5 or fewer in the other 2. So been 50-50 shot so far this series. But again, just banking on a couple extra minutes here for this matchup against the Knicks. In terms of the market as well, a couple of market indicators have me pointing towards the Obi Toppin over, with some markets having it at 7.5. You can find it at 6.5. So that is why I like the Obi Toppin over 6.5 points for this one.
Kyle, I want to bounce a question off of you based on what you just said. The market versus what your numbers are spitting out versus we could triple threat match this versus what your eyes are telling you. How do you weight that? Do you look for, does one outweigh the other, I guess is what I'm trying to ask, as far as those three aspects of capping these numbers?
Yeah, I mean, I'd like to think that my numbers can outweigh the market. Obviously, I don't have that. It'd take a lot of confidence in any number that anybody can create to outweigh the market. I think obviously the market is king here. So I think what I kind of do is I look for ways to use the market within the numbers that I create, which has been a big turning point for me over the last couple of years in terms of having more success with props. So that's also impacting some numbers that I do get. But a lot of times I'll use the numbers that I spit out and project to help find edges there. And usually if things are, too extreme or too off, that's probably meaning that something is off in the numbers. And then in terms of the eye test, I kind of like to use that as just like a confirmation bias, I suppose. But usually all things start with the market and then kind of the difference between, the edge that I have in my numbers compared to the market, and then kind of close it out with hopefully good confirmation bias with what I've been watching.
Yeah, and that's where the eye test can be tricky because in not looking at the numbers, I didn't have Obi Toppin's stat line off the top of my head until I saw you had that as one of the best bets. So I pulled up his game log. I was surprised at the few numbers that he's putting up because eye test wise, he's jumping off the screen literally and figuratively with the way that he plays. But you mentioned that plus minus, and that I think does tell a bit of the story. He helps the Pacers play the way they want to play with that pace. He's so good in the fast break, and he's not a complete loss in terms of a three ball shooter. I mean, he'll at least attempt them, and he finally knocked one down in game 4.
Yeah, definitely. I think lacking confidence is not an issue for Toppin, and like you said, when he gets running in transition, that's kind of when he is at his best. And in game 1, we saw them turn to Obi Toppin in overtime and to close the game in fourth quarter. So I think there's another path to elevated minutes there for Toppin. Like I mentioned, he played 18 minutes last game. I think 18 to 19 minutes is probably a safe projection, but again, I wouldn't be surprised to see an in-game adjustment benefit Toppin in terms of his minutes, to where, okay, we're seeing that on the defensive side, they can do different things with him, and they can, start more transition offense as well. So I think there's several paths to increase minutes here for Toppin, which is kind of why I'm liking this under. And this has been a line that's been at 7.5 for the majority of games so far. So to get it at 6.5, I do think there's some value here.
You just said the under, but you're taking the over. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Correct. Okay. Joe, you have Antonio back in the chat here, says, do you think that Tom Thibodeau starts Mitchell Robinson again? What do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, let's put it this way. The starting lineup is just the fakest thing in the entire world, because we just know he's going to play Josh Hart for fucking 40 minutes. So it doesn't matter. I think he
keeps turning that ball over. He's not.
Yeah, I think he probably does start Mitchell Robinson again. I think they like that combination, at least to start the game. I also think that for Mitchell Robinson, the way to utilize him better, which Tibbs probably won't, but the way to utilize him better is kind of play him in 4 to 5 minute spurts, and just kind of go that way. So he's a high energy guy, he's a max effort guy, but he doesn't have a ton of stamina, and that's maybe how I would want to try to use him. So I think he probably sticks with the same lineup. I don't think that he wants to, from a morale perspective, switch it up again. If he did make an adjustment, I would hope that he puts Deuce McBride in the starting lineup and pulls Mitchell Robinson out rather than reinserting Josh Hart. I think that the changes kind of need to be a little bit further down the line. We need to see a little bit more Deuce McBride minutes for sure. I think he's been excellent for New York this season. He's honestly one of their best screen navigators as well. And that's one of the reasons that I think people have been clamoring for McBride to play. The defense has been really good for him. He's a quicker defender, which I think is important when you're trying to cover Haliburton, who's like a wizard between obviously his passing, but also his screen navigation and the way that he interacts with screens, whether he's either utilizing them or rejecting them. And having a player like McBride that could kind of track him a little bit better, I think would be positive for New York. But I'm not going to hold my breath on seeing that adjustment in Game 5.
Yeah, part of the reason why I say the Knicks have a 0% chance to win this series is because Tom Thibodeau broke his golden rule of, as Mock Rivers says in the chat, Tom Thibodeau wouldn't play 9 guys in a baseball game. And that was the classic line from Kenny Smith on the TNT broadcast, probably the line of the postseason so far. And he broke that rule, and it didn't work. So it feels like desperation mode for the Knicks. My best bets, I'm going Pacers first half plus 1.5. Got it priced at plus 105. So a nice plus money play. They could even lose the first half by a slim margin or tie, and we would win that bet. I also like Tyrese Haliburton over 9.5 assists. Somewhat stole that right out of the grasps of one Kyle Murray, but I know that he will rubber stamp that. So on the Pacers first half play, in the series, they're 3-1 against the spread in the first half. Shout out to Adrian in the chat from last night in the post-game show who pointed that out. The only game that did not cover this first half line was in Game 1, and that was the game where they came all the way back from being down by 17. Indiana is plus 13 in the first half thus far in this series. They are the more comfortable team. Clearly, Indiana has been so good at setting the pace early in these games. Look no further than 43 points scored in the first quarter of Game 4. So I like Indiana to keep it real close, or at the very least come out on top in the first 2 quarters. So Pacers first half play plus 1.5. And there's a chance that if I'm way off on that, fellas, I'm just going to bet the Pacers live because I think this is the end of the series. Tyrese Haliburton over 9.5 assists. The scoring is kind of hit or miss because they don't need him to score 30 in order to win. He did that, but I don't think they need it. You got that game from him in Game 4, but the assists are always going to be there with the way that this team plays and just the way that they've been shooting throughout the playoffs at an unreal level in terms of field goal percentage and 3-point shooting percentage. So this one makes me feel nice and cozy. 15-7, which would have been the under, 11-11. So 3 of the 4 games in this series he's gone over. This has been his series. The playmaking that he is responsible for is the reason for this offensive explosion. And this doesn't really necessarily point us to the over, but I just love this stat. Career games with 15-plus assists and 0 turnovers that have at least 15 games where they've done this. Haliburton, Chris Paul, John Stockton. That is the list. So salute to you, Tyrese Haliburton. I think it's double digits. I don't have the exact number, but those are the 3 guys that have done it the most over the course of the history of the NBA: Stockton, Chris Paul, and of course Tyrese Haliburton. Kyle, why do you also like the Haliburton look? I mean, other than the fact that it's painfully obvious.
Yeah, I mean that is a good point there as well. I think the potentials there are just looking really good for Tyrese Haliburton as well. And then also, like, there's so much attention on him from a scoring perspective. Obviously, he's getting it done from a scoring standpoint as well. But, when he's able to facilitate as well, he's just never really quiet, right? So even if he's not going out there and scoring a ton of points, he's impacting the game with his distribution. So, yeah, a lot to like here. I haven't projected for just over 11 assists in this one. So good things to come for Tyrese.
Yeah, that was amazing about the 15 assist performances. His potentials in that game were 24, so it actually could have been even better for Tyrese Haliburton. Joe, before we wrap, your thoughts on the first half look rather than playing full game. I want to be on the Pacers here, but I respect the market, and I respect the desperation for the New York Knicks. I don't really want to get in front of that, even though if I were backed into a corner and said you have to bet this full game, I would take the Pacers plus the points, but I like them better in the first half. Your thought on that?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's kind of one of those spots where you look at it from Indiana's perspective, and if they're able to get out to a lead early, maybe you can put the game to bed, and you put the series to bed. Whereas if they don't, if New York is able to get a strong start, maybe they're up 10 at halftime. Maybe that changes what Rick Carlisle even wants to do. It's obviously not a must-win game for Indiana. If things kind of start going in New York's way throughout the game, maybe they don't push that hard. Maybe they just say, all right, like we'll just take it back to Indiana for game 6. We'll be fine. So I think that, you're getting an opportunity early to back Indiana. You'll see exactly how the game's going. And I think that's also when it's most likely that New York also dips into their bench. Whereas in the second half, I think, if the game's close, you might see really no bench minutes from New York. And in the first half, that's probably a spot where you do. And that's one of Indiana's strengths, is relying on that bench unit. So I like the first half play here if you're going to grab a side for the Pacers.
And Antonio mentions in the chat, he asks if I'm going to bet the Pacers, you don't like them on the pregame number or the money line, you want a better number. Not necessarily. I would rather, I don't think that you're going to get a much different number if this game is close at the half and the Knicks have a lead. Let's say the Knicks lead by 3 and I lose the first half bet. I think you're going to get a similar number to what you're getting pregame, but that's not going to be enough. If the Knicks are only up by 3 at the half, the Pacers kind of have them right where they want them. Even if they're up by 10, then I would get a better number in that situation. That wouldn't be enough, but there is a chance. What I'm leaving the door open for is there's a chance that the Knicks come out so desperate and so locked in, like the Timberwolves did in game 3, and they finally put together that perfect performance. If I see that and feel it, I'm out, and I'll just take my first half loss and move on, because we have not seen that yet from the Knicks. I don't think it's coming, but I also, I don't have a crystal ball, so I can't say that it's definitely not going to happen. Folks, that is it for today's episode of Buckets. Thanks for tuning in. If you'd like to tail some of these picks from today's episode, look for the quick slip links in the episode description, or go to actionnetwork.com/bet now. If you want to follow these guys, Kyle Murray is at KMurDFS, that's 2 R's, and at Joe Dellera. You can follow me at Brandon Kravitz across all platforms, and at BK Picks in the app. Don't forget to download this app, the Action Network app, for free, and leave us a 5-star rating and a review as well. Wherever you listen to this podcast, it really does go a long way. Also, check out the Action Network Discord to chop it up with Action Network contributors, fellow gamblers like yourself. And also, you'll have a link in the episode description of this podcast. We will be back for more content later today, a pregame show at 5:30 p.m., and then also a live stream on our YouTube channel that will go live immediately after the conclusion of each one of these playoff games. And hopefully, fingers crossed, we get basketball over the weekend. So we need some of these one-win teams to start to rack them up. Thanks so much for tuning in. Let's get buckets.